Left in Kentucky, the podcast of Indivisible, Northern Kentucky. Welcome to Season 3 of Left in Kentucky. Woo! Yay! Hard to believe we're in our third season of our podcast. And we welcome everybody back. And this time we have joining us Miss Amy Ferguson.
Hello, all.
Yay. Miss Ann Dickerson was not able to join us for episode 1.
Ann.
We miss you, Ann. We love you. So it's been a minute since we did our last podcast, our last episode of season 17, our last episode of season 2, which happened to be episode 17. Back in July.
You know what he meant.
Yeah. Everybody knows. So we've been, obviously, lots of things. Nothing's been going on since last July. It's been absolutely quiet. There's been nothing to talk about. And that's why we haven't had a podcast since July.
That's not true.
You're not going with that? Not buying that? Okay. Obviously, COVID continued to be an issue. And several of us had family things and personal things to take care of that came up. We were also all of us were working on campaigns in at least some capacity. Some of us working on multiple campaigns and helping out in multiple capacities. So that really, after our last episode, those things really came to the forefront, and we needed to commit our time to those.
Yeah, there was a big election, I think, last year, wasn't there?
Yeah,
there was.
I thought it was an off year. I didn't think there were any elections.
No, we were really trying to get rid of that turtle fella.
Yeah, we tried to get rid of the turtle. That unfortunately did not happen. But
we should learn a lesson from that.
We did get rid of the orange Julius.
We did.
Yay.
The orange juice enema.
Yeah. Obviously, we're sitting here on the doorstep of the inauguration of Joe Biden, which happens this week, and looking forward to that.
So, as of this recording, it's 2 days, 18 hours, 57 minutes, and 42 seconds that we have left. So, that's not too bad.
Not that any of us are counting. Yeah, we're definitely looking forward to that. This is also the 17th, Sunday the 17th that we're recording this, which I believe, unless you've been under a rock somewhere on the planet, and even then you've probably still heard that nationwide protests have been called for at state capitals around the country. Kentucky's capital and the surrounding grounds have been blocked off, and the Capitol has been shut down for the weekend and through Tuesday. As of now, and I'm just checking the sites now to see if there's anything new. So far, I see no reports of issues happening.
Yeah, the scuttlebutt that I've kind of seen here and there is that they're going to wait for a big push on actual inauguration day. So beware of that.
We have that to look forward to.
The problem is I think people are just so emotionally tied to that weirdo that they just, their whole identity is just wrapped up in it, and they just can't get over it. I don't know. It's a weird thing to watch, because really it's just politics. I mean, when Hillary lost, I was devastated, but I wasn't ready to go break into the Capitol. I mean, I wasn't ready to, have it fought in court for however many times they did. I mean, it's just over the top, crazy.
Yeah, completely over the top. Insurrection usually is over the top.
It's true. But so many people are just sort of kind of blowing it off. It's no big deal. They just got a little out of control, and it's such a serious thing. I think if we don't see some accountability for these folks that were involved, like really involved in it, that it's going to be hard for us to move on past it.
Yeah, I'm hoping we see some real accountability for it. I know there's over 200 and some odd investigations ongoing at this point, a bunch of arrests,
Yep.
Including Bison Boy, which I'm completely sick of seeing. I
Yeah.
don't want to see another picture of him.
Please don't make him more famous.
Yeah, exactly. But he is getting his organic meals in jail.
I'll bring him an organic cow patty.
Yeah, I got organic. But yeah, so we have that. But here in the state, and
in our beautiful Commonwealth,
in the beautiful Commonwealth, we have started the 2021 General Assembly with the supermajority's normal load of super crap.
And, I know. And, it's been so weird this year because generally first couple of weeks of January, Ann and I are down there in Frankfurt, and to just not go this year, it seemed weird. It seemed odd.
Yeah, it's been very bizarre, very, very bizarre. And the Republicans definitely have taken advantage of that. They spent the first few days of the General Assembly. This is the short year, the year that's only a 30-day calendar. And they spent the first few days introducing and passing a bunch of bills designed at hand tying the governor and punishing the governor for having the gall to try to keep us safe during the pandemic. Yeah. And alive, and the numbers are bearing out that that's actually been helpful.
Right.
So
right.
how dare he do that?
Are these bills even constitutional? I mean,
most of them aren't. They're based on issues that have already been tried in other states and have been ruled unconstitutional.
Right. Just a waste of time.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's those legislators saying, yeah, we don't really care about keeping you alive. We care more about scoring political points.
Yeah, and in the meantime, bills that have been introduced to help the people of the Commonwealth and small businesses in the Commonwealth by giving them loans and money to help with the losses from COVID-19 sit on the desk, untaken,
right. Hopefully
unpresented.
Our guest can talk to us a little bit about that being on the inside.
So we do have an extra special guest for our first episode this season. We have our Kentucky House Minority Leader, Joni Jenkins from District 44, who will
Lively
be our guest today.
Shively.
Yep, from the lovely Shively, Kentucky,
Lively Shively,
which Amy would know because Amy has lived there.
Yes. Among other different places in Louisville, yes, I have lived in Shively.
So anyway, we're looking forward to talking to Representative Jenkins here in a little bit, and we do have quite a few interesting guests lined up this season, and we're still putting that list together.
It's gonna be lit.
Yeah, it is going to be off the hook.
Woo!
But before we get to our special guest, we have one of our favorite segments.
Yeah, we stepped in it.
Yeah, the cow patties.
Yeah.
So
too bad Ann's not here to give us a patty.
I know. We always like this, but we're here.
We're here.
So Miss Amy, who is the recipient of your first cow patty of season 3?
So that privilege goes to Mr. Senator Rand Paul. Woo! You get a cow patty, sir. And it's a big one. Big squishy one, because you can't put aside partisanship for some common sense. You are fighting against all kinds of measures to help people during this COVID crisis. You are not supporting impeachment of a president that incited insurrection against the Capitol. So I don't see a lot of common sense coming out of Rand. So let's see what happens next year.
Well deserved, as usual. He usually deserves it when he gets it. I think he's had our cow patty several times.
I personally have given it to him a couple.
He must really enjoy it because he keeps coming back for it. So
I mean, he likes the cow patties.
Personal taste. So my cow patty goes to the impeachment committee on Governor Andy Beshear.
Richly deserved.
Yeah. So the impeachment committee was put together, and in case you don't know, 4 Kentucky citizens sent a petition to the House of Representatives asking for the governor to be impeached. And the law in Kentucky says that when 4 more people petition the House to impeach an official, they have to look into it. Historically, what that's meant is the petition has been remanded to the Judiciary Committee, and the Judiciary Committee looks into it and decides if there's any validity to it or not, which almost invariably they find no validity to it. It's just trying to be
people getting their feelings hurt mostly.
Yeah, and so that's the end of it. But
although I think just as an aside, I do think our AG deserves impeachment. Just my own personal opinion.
Yeah. This year, however, this General Assembly, the David Osborne and the rest of the majority leadership in the House decided that the way to interpret that law was that it meant that a impeachment committee should be formed to look into the petition. So they seated a committee, and
that's your taxpayer dollars, people.
Yep, I guess it's being chaired by Jason Nemes, and they named the committee, and then nobody quite knew when they were going to meet. They said that it might occur as early as Wednesday, and that there would be a notice about the virtual time and place. And then there was nothing. And then all of a sudden, there was a tweet by Daniel DeRochers, who said that the impeachment committee was meeting now and establishing rules. In case you are not aware, in Kentucky, there is a Kentucky Open Meetings Act, which is precisely there to maximize the notice of public meetings and actions. Apparently, this is not very high on the impeachment committee's docket.
They're known for their sneakiness, and we need more transparency, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
And less pushing things through, and I don't know. They're out of control.
Yeah, so once word got out that they were meeting and that it was being broadcast on KET, people started watching and people started showing up. So about an hour into the session, the chairman announced a closed session. No reason, no legal citation as to or statutory basis for the closed session. They just went into closed session.
Not a surprise.
Yeah. So
they like to be sneaky.
Yeah. So for the obfuscation rather than transparency of the impeachment committee, they have my cow patty for this week.
Richly deserved cow patty.
Joining us now from the Louisville area is Representative Joni Jenkins from District 44 in Jefferson County. She is also our minority floor leader in the Kentucky House of Representatives. Welcome, Joni.
Thank you
Hi,
so
Joni.
much for having me on. So excited to be here.
Yeah, good. Glad to have you. I know your cat's happy for you to be on these on here. Apparently your cat enjoys your Zoom calls. So if anybody hears the purring, they'll know what's going on in the background.
Occasionally, one or more of them will start fighting during something like this. So do not be alarmed.
No fighting. So anyway, why don't you, this is your first time on Left in Kentucky, and we appreciate you being on. Why don't you take a few minutes and kind of tell our listeners about yourself and your history with the state government?
Well, I was first elected in 94, took office in 95. So that means I am starting my 14th term. So this is my 27th year in Frankfort. I represent the 44th district, which is the southwestern end of Louisville Metro, Jefferson County. City of Shively, Pleasure Ridge Park, and Valley Station are all in my district. It's a long narrow that goes along the Ohio River. Wasn't born but moved to Shively when I was very, very little and grew up in Shively, went to the University of Kentucky. So, go Wildcats. They had a terrible game last night.
Oh, yeah. Let's not talk about that.
Yeah, I graduated from U of L, so.
Well, they didn't have such a great night either. People are always laugh at me because one day in the General Assembly, I'll have on my UK blue. And the next day I'll have on my U of L. And I'm like, I cheer for U of L when they're not playing UK.
See, I'm the same way.
You can like both of them. I graduated from University of Kentucky with a degree in journalism, of all things, and have background, was working for Jefferson County government in personnel at the time I was elected. And since then, I have worked the bulk of my career since county government has been in violence against women. I worked at the Center for Women and Families, started the first violence against women office at the University of Louisville, worked for U of L for a while. And then I spent a few years at Jefferson Community and Technical College working with kids that were transitioning from foster care to college, and retired from there a couple of years ago, and have been a full-time legislator for the past 3 or 4 years.
Well, thank you for your service.
Excellent. Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, great
It's
background.
been an interesting ride.
And recently that ride has led you to minority floor leader in the Kentucky House. So I guess the first question from a lot of people is, what does the minority floor leader do? Because there's a minority floor leader and there's a minority whip.
And a minority caucus chair. So there are 3 members of the minority caucus that are considered in leaders. And I am the first woman to lead any caucus in Frankfort, and that took until 2020 for that to happen. And our caucus is historic in many ways. I believe it's the first time in the House that we have a person of color, Representative Derek Graham from Frankfort, who is our caucus chair. And we have 2 women in leadership. Our caucus whip is Representative Angie Hatton from Letcher County. And our caucus is historically small for Democrats. We are at 25 members after a terrible election cycle, but we're at 25 members and 17 of those are female.
Wow.
So
that's great.
It is, I always say, other than being too small, it is a amazing caucus. We have such great members of our caucus, smart, there for the good reasons, energetic, innovative, lots and lots of energy in that caucus, which as the leader of that caucus is daunting at times, channeling all that good energy into action and in the right direction is challenging sometimes, but it's a good challenge to have. I help organize the caucus, um, uh, supervise the staff we have in the minority office, work with the other two members of leadership to make sure that we are educating our caucus on the bills and looking to build an agenda, a democratic agenda. And in the off, when we're not in session during the interim, we are recruiting candidates. So if you're interested in running for the House or some other seat, let me know. Raising money, and we, do a lot of the political end of it when we're not in session.
Great. Yeah, I know when I ran this last time for House of Representatives, I know you helped me out on a couple of my fundraisers and with some information and education side as far as agenda, and I really appreciated that. So I think it's important for those people out there thinking, well, do I want to run? I don't know how to run. I don't know what to do. There is support out there. There's your local Democratic Party. There are other organizations available to support, and there's the leadership in the House and the Senate who, like you said, you're always on the lookout for good candidates and are there to provide support for those candidates.
When we get out of session, and at the end of March, we are going to start being very, very proactive. We're going to start right away recruiting candidates. So I work really closely with the Senate floor leader, Morgan McGarvey. We've known each other for years. We're both from Louisville. And we talk, if not daily, 4 or 5 times a week and meet many, many times. And we are working close with the Kentucky Democratic Party, and we're looking for good candidates up and down the ballot. We're going to be looking at those Senate seats that come open in 22 and looking at the House districts within those Senate districts, as well as working with local parties to make sure that we have solid Democrats in local races and state races. We look at 22 as a year to gain back.
Oh, that sounds great.
Excellent. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to helping out with those organizations. Always been heavily involved with helping promote candidates throughout our district. So looking forward to that. So you mentioned, you talked about the size of the Democratic caucus being historically small, which I think our listeners on this podcast are painfully aware of that issue. And we just finished up the first part of this year's legislative session. This year's the short session. And so there was obviously a lot of push on things from the Republican majority that just really, stuff that just really doesn't need to be done. And quite frankly, a lot of it isn't going to hold up to legal pushback as far as constitutionality. But as we've gone through this first part of the session, I guess, what do you see as the important things for us to be aware of as we're in this break, and we should prepare ourselves as we get into the second part of this year's legislative session?
This was the short session, the 30-day odd year session was designed for us to be in for 4 days to do organizational things, to elect leadership, organize into committees and get ready. And then for the second part, we doubled the time that we were there. Instead of 4 days, we were there 8 days. We were there on a Saturday. And the gist of what the majority pushed through was a power grab, taking power away from the executive branch and the governor's office and giving it to the legislative branch, and with some moves to give it to the attorney general's office. To the offices and chambers controlled by Republicans away from the Democrats. So, I mean, they were pretty blatant, I think, about it. In my opinion, I think I speak for both of our Democratic caucuses, we are just so firmly behind Governor Beshear and what he has done through executive order during this pandemic. This was a 100-year pandemic. No one alive was making policy 100 years ago, so there was not a playbook left behind on how to handle this. Decisions had to be made very quickly, and I think Governor Beshear has done an excellent job, and we only have to look at the numbers in Kentucky of cases and deaths and compare those with states around us to know that he did, I believe, the best that he could do for Kentucky, and he based it on expert advice from Dr. Stack and others in the medical field, and everything was done based on science and data. And I sympathize. I know there are people that have been really, really hurt in this pandemic, economically, just so many different ways. But we are 10 months in, and people have made such sacrifices that I am really fearful that if we take this authority away from the governor and give it to a majority that has never released a plan, has never said this is what they would have done instead of what the governor did. And the absence of a plan, I think we've seen that in other states. You only need to look at the Dakotas. An absence of a plan means that you have more deaths. And the pandemic goes on longer. So I think, if anything, we have seen a major power grab in the first 8 days. We have to do a budget this year because when the pandemic hit and during the last session, because our economy at the time was so unpredictable, we did only a 1-year budget instead of the usual 2-year budget. So we have to do a fiscal year 22 budget. The good news is, because of federal stimulus and other actions, our economy in Kentucky is not in the dire straits that we had predicted, that we are actually doing pretty good. We have a surplus. And now I believe is the time through the budget to help those small businesses and individuals that have been hurt.
I have to say that was a real pleasant surprise that came out of the governor's State of the Commonwealth address when he talked about the surplus that we have. I think a lot of people were expecting that the economy was going to be really, really down because of COVID. So. So I was happy to hear about that.
And I think I have to point out, because I don't know that Kentuckians are aware of this, the governor proposed immediate help to individuals and small businesses, taking one-time money that we have from the federal government and pumping money into small businesses and those individuals who are eligible for unemployment, but for whatever reason haven't been able to collect it because of mistakes made in filing. He wanted to immediately help those, and we left Frankfurt without acting on that piece of legislation. So saying that we had to be in for 8 days to do all these things to take power away from the governor, the one thing that I think, and I think most Kentuckians would agree with me, the one thing that we should have done was make sure that we were propping up small businesses and those individuals hurt so badly by this pandemic, and we left without doing that.
Yeah, I really hope that when we get back, when you get back in session, that you'll be able to get through that support for small businesses and the people of the Commonwealth that really need it the most. It's heartbreaking, beyond heartbreaking, that so many of our legislators seemed just completely deaf to really helping the people of Kentucky and more focused on scoring political points and trying to tie the governor's hands.
Yes. And I believe that our governor has a plurality of support among Kentuckians. I mean, it's not like the people of Kentucky are against him. It just seems like the legislators are against him.
You know, I think the areas that many of our legislators are from may feel differently about the governor. But when you poll statewide, his approval ratings in the high 60s, and his approval for how he's handled this pandemic is even higher. So I am unsure why the majority thinks it is such a good idea to strip powers away from him at this point.
And on that topic of stripping powers, there's of course, there was the petition to impeach the governor, which David Osborne and the others said that, we have to address this because so many people submitted it. However, in the past, there's been many, many petitions to impeach any number of people that the legislature has never taken up before.
The statute says that any citizen can file a petition and that the House must send that petition to a committee. And how that's been interpreted in all the years before was that it went to the Judiciary Committee. Nonpartisan staff investigated the petition, and if they came back with evidence that there was some merit, then it would go forward. But what we have seen year after year is that most of these are grudge kind of petitions that someone didn't like a ruling they got from a judge, or they didn't like what the governor, whoever it was, or any other of the other state, the attorney general, were doing, and they were like a grudge, which is what I see in this petition. It's by 4 individuals, 2 of which are embroiled in some action because they haven't followed the executive orders, and are business owners that have defied the governor's and stayed open, so they've been slapped with a misdemeanor or a fine of some sort. So they're angry at that, and I believe making it an impeachment committee and giving it this merit, we are going to see numerous of these petitions filed from people who have grudges, and this could be all that the House deals with in the future if they're going to continue to give everyone a hearing in front of an impeachment committee and go through that process. It's going to cost money. This impeachment committee is already looking at hiring an independent counsel, an attorney, to represent them, to make sure we're not breaking the law in any way. And it just has opened Pandora's box, I think. We've already had one other one filed against a sitting legislator who has been indicted on felony strangulation in an alleged domestic violence incident.
Representative Goforth.
Yes, from Eastern Kentucky, who recently won re-election by about 80% of the vote, despite his legal problems, which could be a whole nother show to talk about that.
I was going to say, that's a whole podcast series on its own.
It is.
So let's talk about some individual bills. I know that in some of our preparation for this episode, you've sponsored or co-sponsored 1 or 2 bills. I think 42 was the number we came up with.
Oh my goodness.
I counted them.
I had no idea.
So we're going to ask you to speak on all 42. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Oh my goodness. Well, they're all really good bills.
They really are. I did look at all of them.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I guess the one I really like to start with is House Bill 21, also known as Breonna's Law.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's that. The lead sponsor on that is a member of my caucus, Representative Atticus Scott, who is awesome, who has been at the protest and seen everything going on around this up close and personal. She was protesting peacefully and got tear gassed, and just has an incredible story to tell about. She got arrested. She got arrested. She got charged with a felony, which was kind of crazy, and a misdemeanor. But felony charges and misdemeanor charges were dropped. She has been on the forefront of this. The Louisville Metro Council has already banned no-knock warrants. So this would extend that to the rest of the state. It also has some language in there about body cams. She and Representative Wilner just filed 3 bills late in the session about protest and how police respond to them. And I have not had the opportunity to read those bills and co-sponsor them, but I'm thinking probably I will be a co-sponsor. I'm going to read them while we're on our little break here, but doing really incredible work around those issues. President Bob Stivers over in the Senate has, in the majority, has said he's going to file a bill about no-knock warrants. I have not seen that, but I haven't checked to see if anything was filed late, but I would have thought we would have seen some coverage had that bill been filed. So it's going to be interesting to see which bill moves. And I have talked several times to House majority about the symbolism of having the piece sponsored by a African-American woman. Having that piece move forward is very important and very symbolic, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Attica's been on our show several times, and she's I consider her a friend. She's helped me out many number of times, and she's an amazing person and lives her values, definitely. So I definitely look up to her. So some of the other bills you've got, let's see, there's House Bill 34 about raising the minimum wage.
Oh, I've been a proponent of raising the minimum wage for many, many years. I was very, very happy to see President-elect Biden talk about that on the federal level, because that does help us because we're tied to the federal. But I think if anything, this pandemic has taught us a lot of things. One really important thing that it has taught us is that trickle-down economics doesn't work. What worked in keeping our economy stable was the infusion of monies into middle and lower income folks by way of a stimulus. Because when you put more money in the pockets of that population, it goes right back out in the community and gets turned over 2, 3, 4 times. By raising the minimum wage, and I know businesses have talked about the hardship on them, and I am sympathetic to that. But for overall economic health, having lower and middle income folks making a fair wage, and I'm not even sure now if $15 an hour is really a living wage or not, but we know that money goes right back into local economies. And lots of studies have showed us. The one thing that really interests me is that kind of stimulus into that population really increases the success of their children in K through 12 education. And I guess what it tells us is that people are spending that money on nutrition, on books, and all those things that add to kids' success. And it makes just for a more stable household. And those all mean more educational success for our kids.
Absolutely. Yeah, it helps the whole community.
Yeah.
So let's see. One that's there's several on here that are near and dear to my heart for personal reasons and personal values. One of those, I guess, is House Bill 56, which allows unions for government employees. I think the unions and the representation of workers in our country and the decline in that is one of the main causes for the decline in our middle class and our mobility into the middle class.
Well, I'm just, I'm the product of a labor household. My dad was a communication, graphic communications worker, and then later became president of his own union. And, I just see what it meant for my family, and the fact that my parents are now in their late 80s, and because they have a defined benefit pension, are living pretty well for being middle class all their life, and are doing quite well. Really, really worried about the decline in union membership and the security that it brings, as well as the attack on defined benefit pensions.
Right.
I won't be around, years from now when people are retiring without that safety net. And I just wonder what our state will look like when we have, teachers and police officers and firefighters and other government workers retiring without that security of knowing what their pension benefit's going to be, and aren't able to do, afford things like food. What does that look like?
Unfortunately, it's going to be people working way past retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Is what's going to happen. And people
right.
are going to die in their chairs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's not the Kentucky I want.
Right.
Exactly right.
And if these baby boomers aren't retiring and moving out of their jobs, where are the jobs for the folks coming behind them? That's one of the reasons that government had defined benefit and pretty generous pension plans, because it kept people moving through the system. And so older folks could go ahead and retire and live, comfortably, but those people graduating from college and coming into the workforce, there were jobs for them. So it just, it's kind of how we built an economy.
Yeah, it's how you keep the economy moving,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I guess, are there any bills that you want to talk about that we maybe haven't touched on?
I could say that the one that really stood out to me was House Bill 95 on the insulin price cap.
Yes.
I think that'll do a lot of good for a lot of people. You can get that passed.
We, Patty Mentor, who is our member from down in Bowling Green, who has a son who's type 1 diabetic, it's been near and dear to her heart. And she has worked across the aisle with Representative Bentley, who's from Greenup County, who is a pharmacist. And they worked together and got bipartisan support from each of their caucuses. And it passed the House last time, pretty substantially. Very few votes against it, and went over to the Senate where they didn't take it up. How this cannot be, we passed all these things that have an emergency that they go into effect right away. How something like this does not get passed with an emergency clause saying as soon as the governor signs it, it goes into effect. The fact that we have folks that are rationing their insulin, that are dying because they can't afford their insulin, that has no place in Kentucky or in this country whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Representative
I feel a little
Jenkins.
strongly about that one.
We can tell. That's good. We like passion. Are there any, Representative Jenkins, are there any other bills that you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
Oh gosh. I have not sponsored a whole lot of bills because I want to be supportive of my caucus members. There's a bringing back prevailing wage legislation. We have that one. We have some pieces on PTSD among first responders. I don't think that one's been filed yet. I think that one's still sitting on my desk, actually. But, there's still some more good things to come. Surprise billing. Representative Sherilyn Stevenson has been working on that issue for a while. She's from Lexington. There's a maternal health bill that Representative Scott has. So there's lots and lots of good bills within our caucus. We will be have filed and will be filing some more voter reform bills. I think the things that we saw due to the pandemic were things that can be used all the time. That should be permanent. The early no excuse voting, the voting on Saturdays, anything. I'm a firm believer that anything we can do to break down barriers from people getting to the polls are a good thing. So we're looking at some of those. And, historically, since as long as I've been there, a Democrat within the caucus has filed a constitutional amendment about giving felons the right to vote once they have served out their time. And I believe Representative George Brown, who's been on the forefront of that, I believe he has filed it. I don't know the number of that bill right now.
Great.
Yeah, we love that kind of stuff. Getting people out there to vote is key.
Yeah, expanding voter access and extended voting times, extended voting days, I think are so important to our democracy, right? The democracy works better when more people are allowed to vote and have the ability to vote. Reenfranchising.
And how great was it that we had a Republican Secretary of State and a Democratic governor work together?
That was impressive.
Wasn't that impressive? To say, you know, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that people are allowed to vote and that they do it in a safe way. I think that was just, you know, a bright spot in Kentucky.
Definitely. In a year that seemed to have not a lot of bright spots, that was definitely a moment of, there's a light.
It can work. It can work. And I do like to remind people that most of the issues that we take up are not partisan issues. Sometimes there's a divide between rural and urban, but, you know, most bills by the time they get to the House floor will pass, you know, 90 something to, you know, just a handful. Most of those things get worked out in a bipartisan manner. You know, the problem is in this 8 day of the first session, bills were passing 75 to 25, all along party lines. And that tells you something's wrong.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, I do think we need to bring up, you know, the safety of our legislators and the Capitol. You know, I know the obviously in DC as they get ready for the inauguration and what happened a couple of weeks ago with the armed insurrection. There's a lot of concern at the various state capitals, Kentucky being one of those state capitals. We've seen out of hand protests in Frankfurt over the past several years. And I know you can't give away certain details, but I was just wondering if you could take a few minutes to kind of talk about the safety of Frankfurt and the Capitol and you and your fellow legislators.
We have been very concerned. I mean, even before the 6th of January, but my goodness, coming out of session and looking at those images coming out of DC, just, I can't remember a time when I felt so sad and frightened for our country. Then we heard that, you know, this on the 17th, the day that we're taping this, that there were calls for everyone across the country to march on their state capitals. I began from the 6th on talking very publicly about the fact that my caucus has never received training on what to do if anything happened in the Capitol, how to get out of the chamber and where to go. So I've been pushing for that. And I think the majority kind of poo-pooed that notion. But now they've joined us and said, you know, this is something we need to do. So we look forward in the next couple of weeks of seeing that. The Capitol is locked down on Friday night, the 15th. I'm getting my days mixed up. On the 15th at 5 o'clock, everybody's badge was disconnected. So no legislators or staff could get into the annex or the Capitol Friday night through, I think, Tuesday morning. And that'll be reevaluated. Roads to the Capitol were shut down this weekend, and I saw photos that it would be nearly impossible to get anywhere near either two of those buildings. I hope that we'll look back and say, oh, we didn't need to do all that. I think that'd be a great thing. But I want us to be err on the side of being too cautious. You know, a year ago before COVID, a year or more ago, we had armed people in the Capitol roaming through the halls with automatic weapons on a Friday afternoon when most people were gone. And the photos from that, seeing those folks in our Capitol and Annex were just chilling. And I have always been supportive of legal folks having personal weapons, but I still see no need to carry them in many places. And one of them is government offices and places where citizens are. We have school children that visit us and get this great opportunity to see history in the making, to see their government work. And if they're on the floor of the House with us and somebody's in the gallery with a weapon, it could be very, very tragic. And I no longer encourage people to send kids. I don't bring kids with me as pages anymore, just because I can't guarantee that they'll be safe.
Wow.
Speaking of safety, on the floor, how is the whole body doing as far as COVID, wearing masks and taking safety precautions?
We do have the technology that members can stay in their annex offices and vote from their offices. And that's been kind of a challenge for us because most of the majority, it seems, are on the floor and their mask wearing is spotty at best. They're crowded in there. I have to be on the floor as a leader, but I've had my first vaccine. The leadership was all offered to take the vaccine. So my caucus is in that uncomfortable position of making sure that they're safe and that they're keeping their family safe, but also being able to voice and participate in the debate and ask questions. So it's been challenging for us, and we keep reaching out to the majority, trying to find innovative ways for folks to be able to participate in the debate. We're still pushing a little bit on that. Some choose to come over just for a brief period of time, walk on the floor, ask their question or make their statement. And some are using the leadership to voice their questions and read their statements. So we're trying to be innovative. But I also, very, very much want to keep my caucus healthy and safe. And we don't know everybody's medical situation. And we also don't know everybody's home situation with who is in their household and who could be at risk. I'm very, very careful. I take care of my 89-year-old father and my 86-year-old mother. So I am very, very, very careful and double mask when I'm on the floor. But you know what? They can still hear me through my microphone. I keep telling them, you don't have to take off your mask to talk in the microphone. I'm double masked.
Microphones work very well.
They work very well. And I've got a new respect for doctors that wear that N95 all day long, because I wear it, for an hour or so on the floor, and it is hot and uncomfortable, but I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Agreed.
People say it's hot and uncomfortable. And I've heard some people use that as an excuse. And my response is always, well, it's not as uncomfortable as a ventilator. So
that's right. I'm very glad to see, the vaccines being pushed out. I wish we could vaccinate people faster, but it does look like we're doing, very well as compared to other states. And I'm hoping that a change in administration on the federal level is going to expedite that. I have faith that soon to be President Biden is going to make sure that moves much, much quicker than it has been.
So if people want to, we always try to wrap these up with, what can people do to help? If there's a bill that's important to them, does calling your legislator, even if your legislator is not a Democrat or is not a progressive, is a Republican, does it do any good to call them? What can people do to help further the issues and the bills that are important to them?
I do believe that, that contact with your own personal state rep and state senator is amazingly effective. I always tell people, when I first was elected, one of the first big debates that I witnessed was whether or not to take the tax off baling wire, which, first of all, as a city girl, I had to figure out what baling wire was. And, we had this 2-hour debate on it. And I was just kind of watching it all. And one of the rural legislators got up and he had this, package of green paper. We call those the green slips that have our messages on it. And he's like, I've heard from so many people, we have to do this. And of course we did, because we, never saw a tax we didn't like to take off. And afterwards I walked over to him and I said, how many people called you on that? And he goes, 15. And I'm like, 15? So the number of people that contact is very, very small. So, never think that it's not going to make some impact. So, I would encourage you to use those message lines, the email, any way that you can possibly communicate with your legislator. And, I will tell you, as somebody who comes from a pretty Democratic area that's pretty progressive, that, what it does to us to hear from people that say, oh, I saw that bill. I want you to know I support it. I want you to know that I think you're doing a good job. We don't hear that very often. So that's really nice too. If your legislators doing a good job, if they voted the way you wanted them to, reach out and let them know. This is hard work, especially for those of us in the minority. So anytime that you can reach out, whether it's to be proactive, and if they do what you ask them to do, circle back around and thank them.
Good points.
Great advice. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And
it was a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you all so much. Keep up the good work. I appreciate so much you giving platform to progressive electeds and candidates across the state. We shall overcome.
Yes.
Thank you, Leader Jenkins. Have a great day.
Thank you. You all stay safe. Thank you so much.
And that's going to wrap it up for this week on Left in Kentucky. We want to thank Representative Jenkins for joining us. Yay. And we're looking forward to some of our upcoming guests. We have coming up Representative Rachel Roberts and Representative Buddy Wheatley will both be with us in the next few weeks. And we are
looking forward to those.
Our newer friend, Mr. Ryan Saltzman, political professor at Northern Kentucky University. He will be joining us this season.
Love talking to him.
Yay.
Great. It's so good to be back, Roberto.
It is. It is good to be back. I've missed this. I miss the podcasts and I miss talking to people. So, this is all, provided that Wednesday, the entire country doesn't get plunged into civil war.
Yes, let's make sure that doesn't happen. Come on, cross your fingers, everybody.
We can hope. I think they're taking steps to prevent that. So hopefully we'll make it through that well. And the next time we talk, we will have a new president of the United States.
That is so exciting.
Yay! So if there's
who knows, maybe Rand Paul will get another cow patty next week.
Maybe. Oh, maybe there might be new people. You never know.
Might be.
So anyway, if there's anybody you'd like to have us on the show or any questions you'd like to ask, you can get a hold of us by emailing us through the podcast and or through our Facebook page, Indivisible Northern Kentucky District 4. And we look forward to hearing from you. And hopefully next week, Ann will be able to join us.
Yeah, we need our Ann.
Yeah, we miss our Ann. It's just not the same doing these without.
It's still fun, but yeah, she is a piece of the pie is missing.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, we wish her well and hope her back soon. But until then, this is Roberto Henriquez.
Amy Ferguson. Stay safe, guys.
Take care.